You are what you eat. How many of us have ever heard that before? You are what you eat. We eat junk food and our bodies become junk, huh? We eat good and healthy and fit food and we become good and healthy and fit. We are what we eat. But I don't think those words are ever so true is on tonight as thinking about what we are celebrating here, about realizing what we are doing here. For we are eating the body of Christ. We are drinking his blood. And we are what we eat. What we're celebrating tonight is the fact not only of the Eucharist, not only of the events that led to our own salvation. We are celebrating not only the body and blood of Christ, but we're celebrating that we, through the death and resurrection of Jesus, have become the body of Christ. We are what we eat. And that is not simply figurative, that is real. I was enjoying this past Lent reading your own reflections, as Chuck Holmes knows, for several weeks ago. He's going to get company tonight. This past Palm Sunday, Mary Grace Gorman wrote about Palm Sunday. But you ended, Mary Grace, with one of my favorite passages from St. Teresa of Avila. We are the hands of Christ. We are the feet of Christ. We are the speech that Christ uses today. We are the body of Christ. And perhaps as we celebrate tonight, we should really think about what that really means. We, in eating Christ's flesh and drinking his blood, become Christ. Christ to one another. Christ to all we meet. But there's another part of tonight which is very interesting. We might eat the healthiest foods around. We might drink the best elements that we can for our own body. But if all we do is eat, we get flabby. Now again, I know Wash U is the place of intellectual activity, but come on, you all do sports, right, as well? And it's in exercising that we also become those fit bodies that we need to be. And listen to what happened as Deacon Phil was reading the gospel. This is the Last Supper. We all know what happens at the Last Supper. The early Christian communities all knew what happened at the Last Supper. And guess what's the one thing John doesn't talk about? The institution of the Eucharist. And at that point in time where you just know it's going to happen, John goes in the exact opposite direction. He doesn't say, this is my body, this is my blood. He doesn't give his disciples bread to eat and wine to drink. He takes off his outer garments. He fills a basin with water. He kneels before each of those disciples and he washes their feet. The activity of a slave. The activity of a servant. Right when we think we are about to become the body of Christ, John tells us, you need to serve. If we only eat, we become flabby. We must exercise. And the only way John tells us to exercise is to get down on our knees and wash one another's feet. That reflection on Sunday by Mary Grace was followed on Monday by Zeke Salcedo. And that little section of his reflection hit me strongly. We need to love one another, but we need to show it. We need to exercise it, especially with the poor. If we are the body of Christ, we must do the work of Christ. If we are the body of Christ, we must serve as Christ served. And not only the beautiful people in our lives, not only our close friends, but we must serve especially the poor, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, those who others would rather shun. That's what it means to be the body of Christ. That's what it means to be Eucharist. That's what it means to do the work that we promised to do when we were baptized. And so today is a very special night. It's a night of celebration. It's a night of celebration because we are indeed Christ's body. It is a night of celebration because we are nourished by the very body and blood of Christ. But it's also a task that we do the work of Christ in service, in love, especially with the poor and those scorned. So let's think tonight about this fantastic call that we've received. We have been called to partake of the very body and blood of Christ. We have been called into service. We have been called, as Paul says, to proclaim the death of the Lord until he comes. We are called to be the very body of Christ. We are what we eat.